Hi, I'm stringing the around the world pattern and I'm coming up to a hard weave. In this video, I'll share with you how to handle hard weaves and see if you can figure out which technique I'll be using for this one. This first technique I want to point out first, there's a high friction area right there where the mains and the crosses are really close together. So this is called a half-half technique. Basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm weaving half of the string through, and when I reach the midway point, I'm going to stop. And then because I'm still using the one ahead technique, I have enough string length for that. I do have to leave a loop right there where I'm going to tension the string right there. And then after I clamp off, I will have to pull that entire string length, whatever's left, before I weave the second half of that string. So, and I did pull it at an angle to help reduce the friction. So when you weave the second half, just make sure you start over or under appropriately. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pull that through. Now, if you have enough string length, you can leave another loop to do the one ahead. But if you don't have much string length, then you can go ahead and tension it right now. But I do have enough in this case. So I'm gonna go ahead and repeat the same thing I just did. Now, this is very useful when you have crossovers on the outside of the frame where I'm pushing the string through right there for natural gut. And it does help reduce the friction for stiff strings, polyester strings that are shaped or textured. So after I clamp off, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm gonna weave that second half, and I'll wait for it to happen, but I'm gonna weave it right there. All right, so as I'm pulling this, you need to pay attention to that loop that's in the middle and make sure you don't kink it. So I'm just making sure that, yeah, right there, it stays straight. The second technique is called a stitching technique. Now, although I'm still using the pulling method, you notice that I'm not actually weaving the string, I'm actually stitching it. So it does help that you don't have a long string length, because each time I stitch it, you'll notice that I'm actually pulling the entire string length through. So I have enough to reach the tension head at this point. Now, this technique really works well with natural gut, especially if there's a crossover on either side of that cross string, because if you ever worked a natural gut, it does have a tendency to twist at that point if there's a blocked hole. This also works well with any kind of stiff polyester that's shaped or textured, and it does help reduce the friction, and it works really well when you have hardly any space, especially on that last cross. Here's an example of a hard weave followed by an easy weave when using the around the world pattern. And I typically won't use this when I'm stringing polyester because I don't like the fact that the string builds up a lot of friction on the hard weaves. But I typically would do it on a synthetic string or natural gut. So this is an around the world pattern that I devised that's on the IART website. I went ahead and left this string untensioned using the one ahead technique. But you can see that this string that I just weaved, it might not have looked like a hard weave, but there's a lot of friction right here compared to the next weave I'm going to show you. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tension this string. All right, so we're on the next string where this is an easy weave. And again, I still have this untensioned string using the one ahead technique, but this string is sliding right through here. I mean, it's so easy. There's no resistance. And in fact, when I pull the string through, there's no hardly any friction. So I'm gonna go ahead and tension this string and then show you the method on the next weave when I'm doing a hard weave. All right, so I'm back here on the next string where this will be a hard weave, but let's say there's a lot of friction buildup, and let's say if you're using polyester or anything that has a lot of either shaped or textured. So this is called a half diagonal pull. Let me just go back again. So I'm gonna go ahead and weave half of the string bed going across, and then when I reach the middle, I'm just gonna form a loop and then just reinsert the string, but just make sure that you're either going over or under appropriately so that there's no misweaves. And one easy way to check is just make sure if you went over on the first string, you should be under here. All right, so what you're gonna do is as you pull the string through before you tension it, you're just gonna leave this loop in the middle and you're pulling the string at an angle, so it reduces the friction that way, and that does help with textured, or again, if you are using a polyester string in the around the world technique, then this half diagonal pull will reduce some of that friction. All right, so coming back to the hard weave that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you guessed the half-half or the stitching technique, you are correct, but I'm gonna show you a fourth technique, which is a combination of those two. So I have enough, both strings are tensioned right here on the side, so this is definitely gonna be a hard weave. So what I would do in this case, I would kind of use a stitching technique right here, but when I get halfway through, I'll go ahead and pull it like the half-half technique, and then go ahead and weave the other half. So then that way I don't have to pull the entire string length on every single string like the stitching technique. And then again, watching out for this loop in the middle as I pull it to make sure that it stays straight. So that's how I would handle this particular hard weave. So make sure when you're pulling this string that you're gonna actually pull it twice. So I have this on pre-stretch, but when you come forward with that, pull that string, there was a little bit of slack that I pulled right there, and then you're gonna pull it a second time. You just wanna make sure that the tension is gonna be pulling true on this hard cross. I hope this video was helpful in making your hard weaves easier. Thanks for watching, happy stringing, and let your strings play.